Welcome, everyone, to another Believe in Mavs episode. As always, I'm your host, Mo Murphy, and I made you a promise starting yesterday with TGK that we was going to have a guest every day, all the way up until Thursday, leading up to the NBA Finals to talk about your Dallas Mavericks and what it's going to take to win the NBA Finals. And so today, on Monday, we got Coach Casey's schedule on Air Sports Talk, former 10-year U.S. Navy veteran, and also a 15-year high school basketball coach. Coach, before we get into it, Coach Casey, who y'all, my brother? You know,
Hey.
Navy veterans. We got to go ahead and get that out the way. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing swell, man. First off, thank you for having me. And On Time Sports Talk is mine. But I'm very thankful to come on here with you, talk some Mavs. You know, we kind of messaged back and forth there for a little bit. Discover we both Navy vets. You going into coaching, I've been there. So I think this will be a pretty interesting dynamic we got going. And I'm looking forward to it, man. And I'm excited to I've been a Mavs fan since '97.
Mm-hmm.
So right after they got Dirk and Nash, after 2011, I got the Mavericks tattoo on my shoulder. Like I'm all about the Mavs. So but I'm interested to see what you think of some of the breakdowns that and matchups that I'm excited to see in this Boston series in the finals.
Yeah, 100%. So I do appreciate you for coming on. So we're going to get straight into it. The Dallas Mavericks are in the NBA Finals. That's obviously why we're here. That's obviously why we're talking. They're going to be playing the Boston Celtics in what I've said is going to be probably a gruesome 6 or 7 game series. Full disclosure with TGK, I took the Mavs in 6. That's going to be my consistent. I don't think I'll switch up from there. I'm rocking with Mavs in 6 all the way. I think they're going to win the championship. But we are going to talk. We'll get your prediction at the end, and we might already catch the vibe of how you're feeling throughout this conversation. So first things first, the Dallas Mavericks made it to the NBA Finals. Your initial thoughts, because when the Dallas Mavericks were playing in Game 5, they knew who their opponent would be if they won Game 5. So everybody in Dallas knew, beat Minnesota, we got Boston. Dallas beats the world out of Minnesota. You celebrate the Western Conference Finals. You wake up, though, and you understand this is the tallest task that we probably have left in the playoffs. We got to play. The job's not done. We got to play the Boston Celtics to win the championship. So your initial thoughts once your Mavericks made it to the NBA Finals and you really realize, like, okay, now it's all about Boston. What's your initial thought of matching up against Boston?
So I would say my initial thoughts was the Mavs are prepared for this. I think they've had a solidly tough road to the finals. And when it comes to going through the 3 rounds that they did, and then when you talk about Boston, my initial was I'm interested to see if KP comes back, because that adds a whole nother dynamic to the matchup problem of Mavericks to Boston and Boston to the Mavs, honestly, to be able to take advantage offensively with KP on the perimeter. But the initial thoughts, well, obviously the excitement of being back in the finals. And I think it's going to be I think the longer the series goes, the more it favors the Dallas Mavericks. I think if Boston is able to get 2 or 3 games in those first 4, I think it's trouble for the Mavs. But ultimately, my initial thoughts was excitement. I love the matchup. I'm intrigued to see if Boston and Jason Tatum show up in the crunch time, because that's kind of been the knock on JT out there in Bostonian land. And so initial thoughts was I'm excited. I think it's an intriguing matchup. And I think you have the guy who's becoming he's already been a face of the league, but becoming one of the predominant faces of the league in Luka, and against another face of the league in Jason Tatum. And what those two do in the series, that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think the Luka versus Jason Tatum is an important dynamic in this series. And it's a lot deeper than just 2 of the best players in the NBA. This is Luka Doncic, a European player, been a superstar basically since he stepped foot in the NBA, first team All NBA 5 of his 6 years. He won Rookie of the Year his rookie year. Typically rookies won't make All NBA teams, or else he probably would have been on there every year. He's got a Hall of Fame. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Probably he could retire tomorrow, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Then you got Jason Tatum on the other side. Not a lot of individual success, but like we've acknowledged, Tatum's one of the top 5 to 10 players in this league. He's been to multiple conference finals, then been to NBA finals. This is their second NBA finals appearance while with Boston. So you've had, like, Boston has had the ultimate success except for winning the championship. Like, they've done everything you can do in the NBA as a collective except win the championship. But the biggest dynamic and where it's a little bit deeper is the focus is like there's a potential that the winner of this championship, the best player on that team, ends up becoming the face of the league. And that's more so talking about Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic. Now, if Jaylen Brown wins finals MVP and he's the best player on Boston, I don't think Jaylen Brown will be the face of the league. I think it'll, he'll be it'll be more respected than when like Iguodala won finals MVP, because he is that 1B guy. And at certain times, Jaylen Brown is better than Jason Tatum on certain nights. So it will be respected, but you won't be pushing for Jaylen Brown to be face of the league. Right now, could Luka take over as the face of the league? And could it be Jason Tatum? And this is like the Europeans have been winning MVP. The Europeans have been winning championships. You got Giannis, you got Jokic. They're playing in the championship almost every year, outside of when the Golden State Warriors won it a couple years ago. And so we're looking for that next American-born star, one of the young guys, to take over and be the face of the league. In the Dallas and Minnesota matchup, the focus was on Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards was kind of supposed to be that guy. And if he would have ended up beating Dallas, like, it was a possibility. Like, he's the guy they're seeking to be the face of the league, especially with being American born, because it seems like we're losing a lot of the Americans being really the top players in the NBA. I mean, 4 of the top 5 players are European or from overseas or not from America. So I think that matchup between these two matters, because I think if Luka wins, he will be like the face of the league. 25 years old, has a championship, can pass, shoot, he can score whenever he feels like it. Like, he has that game that's attractive that everybody will love to watch. And I think there's that small part, though, that if Boston wins, they'll start pitching Jason Tatum. So I do think the Luka versus Jason Tatum dynamic is more so like the winner might end up being the face of the league and being promoted at a different level that we're not used to.
I 100% agree with you on that. In the realm of when you're talking European versus American there and that dynamic, I think that could be a whole episode in itself and diving into that. Because obviously, if you understand the European model of basketball versus the American model of basketball and how it is set up growing up, is the European system, there is no high school basketball in Europe. It's all club. It's all outside of the education system. And they have the philosophy of we practice 5 times a week, play once. And then here in the States, with AAU and even high school, you play twice a week or have tournaments. You have this kind of cog of something that never stops. And I think one of the interesting points you made when you brought up Jokic and Luka is, what did Jokic want to do after he won the championship? He just wanted to get back to his farm and get back to regular life. Like, they see the game differently in the means and to what it means to be an NBA player versus players that are raised and play here in the States or even quote unquote, I'd say all of North America in that realm with Canada thrown in there. So I think the big difference there is it's almost a clash of ideologies on a deeper level when you're talking Tatum versus Luka and which is the best way. And then you throw in your other best players around the league and, are they from Europe? Are they, never did I think we were going to have the discussion at any point in watching basketball and playing basketball growing up of saying, oh, the 2 best players in the world might be these 2 white dudes from Europe. Like, watching Jordan and all them growing up, like, you would never imagine that. And so it is an interesting conversation, depending on who wins, is which way is better, which system of basketball is better, and ultimately better for the long-term health of the NBA and its product.
Yeah, and I think with Luka, though, is like he has that game that's attractive to everybody. And so if you make him the face of the league, he's a lot of these young kids' favorite players. He's not the most athletic. He doesn't kill you with athleticism. Like everything about his game is like you can get. You can become an elite passer. You can become an elite scorer. Now, it's not easy. And I think Luka kind of came up naturally just being elite. Obviously, as you get older, you get better. He wants to be a great NBA player, but I think I don't think if Luka wins this championship and becomes the face of the league, people will focus so much on the European dynamic of who's the face of the league because Luka's also a guard. And you kind of battled it with Giannis or Jokic because the game can't be emulated. You can't emulate another Giannis. You have to hope a 6'10" guy with that kind of skill, that kind of build just comes along. You can't emulate another Jokic. You can't hope that you just kind of got to hope that there's a 7-footer out there somewhere that could pass, shoot the ball, get rebound, and do everything that you want offensively. Even with Luka, there's not a bunch of guys that could do what he does at the elite level, but there's guys that can do it. There's guys that are a Swiss Army knife, a jack of all trades. And so I think with Luka being able to win this championship and take over as the face of the league, there won't be a lot of pushback because Luka has that game that's attractive to everybody. Just like we saw not too long ago, about 10 years ago, when Steph Curry hit the scene and it was like, okay, is he the new face of the league over LeBron James? It was because LeBron can't be emulated. Steph Curry was everybody's favorite player because his game seemed reachable. I could become an elite shooter. I don't have to depend on the fact that I'm never going to be 6'8" or 6'9" and 290 pounds coming through the middle. I don't have, but I can work on shooting for all day long. I could work on ball handling all day long. I could be the next Steph Curry. I could put on the show. And so I think it's the same with Luka. Now, granted, he's 6'7", not 6'1", 6'2", but even still, his play style and the fact of he's not the most athletic and he doesn't kill you with his athleticism would be good for the league for him to be the face of the league. Now, let's talk about what it'll take for him to be the face of the league. You got to win this championship. You got to beat the Boston Celtics. And so I want to talk about some of the matchups. So with Luka, he's a killer. You cannot stop him. There is no answer for him. I don't think there's really a defender in the league that you can slow him down in spots. You have to pick your spots within the game. You have to pick your moments within the game where you can slow him down, but you're not slowing him down for 48 minutes for 4 quarters. He's one of those superstars. It's just not going to happen. So what do you think what are you expecting to see from Luka in order to win this championship? Because typically winning a championship, it falls on your best player's shoulders. And so Luka Doncic is the best player. As much as we love Kyrie Irving, this is Luka's team. But what is it going to take from Luka? Because it's easy to say 30 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. If you can average that, or 10 assists, 9 rebounds, if you can average that, then you did everything you needed to do to win a championship. And if we don't, we look elsewhere and find some of the other problems. But I think it's bigger than that. I don't even necessarily think it's about the numbers. I think it's about the impact and moments of the game. So what does Luka have to do against this Boston defense offensively for you to think Luka can lead this team to a championship and get the job done?
I think before I get to that, I'm going to tag on when you're talking about his game being relatable. Mm-hmm. He's like the old man at the rec that gets whatever shot he wants. Yeah. No one can stop him, and it's very frustrating. That's his type of game, and it's I can do that, but you can't do that. But but what Luka needs to do, or what I feel like he needs to do strategically, I think he's got to be efficient, and he can't be the Kobe efficiency back in the day of. If he gets 30, we want him to take 30 shots to get that 30, because that means other guys aren't taking those shots. So I think he has to be efficient, not fall in love with the 3 when he's not making them. Because in my book as a coach, a bad shot is a turnover. Mm-hmm. So it's not a turnover in the stat book, but it's a turnover in the course of a game.
Right.
And so I think what he has done is he's really put his faith and his trust in his teammates to make shots. And when it's time for stars to take over, him and Kyrie have done that. But Luka, I think it comes down to efficiency and taking care of the basketball. There was too many games against the Thunder and in the Western Conference Finals that there was so many early turnovers and just bad turnovers. And luckily, Minnesota would just give it right back to you. I remember Anthony Edwards in the 4th quarter just thrown into the second row for no reason. Mm-hmm. In game 4, appreciate that. And so Ultimately, efficiency and taking care of the basketball. It sounds simple. There's no magic formula, or if I pulled up a whiteboard here, like going this way, that way, this way, X's and O's. It really comes down to efficiency and taking care of the basketball for the Mavericks. Because if you give Boston more possessions than you're not going to win the game. And so, no matter what you're doing defensively, I would suspect, and I haven't seen enough Boston defense to give an educated guess on this, but I would assume they would take some of that blitzing defense that they saw in the previous rounds against them and try to make guys like Daniel Gafford and Blake Lively, even though Lively is pretty solid at it, make them make a decision in the middle of the court because they're not a threat from deep. So, and get the ball out of Luka's hands or Kyrie's hands. But Luka has to be efficient and take care of the basketball. We can't give free possessions, whether that's long rebounds in transition and just live ball turnovers. I should say live ball turnovers, because dead ball turnovers, you can get your defense back and all that. But you don't want to give up those live ball turnovers and transition opportunities.
Yeah, and I think everything you said with Luka having to be efficient, like I think Luka and his performance in what he does in game one, obviously it's like it sets the tone. Game one is the tone setter for the series. But I think with Luka, he has to take advantage early. And because Boston is probably going to adjust, but I also feel like Boston might come out a little stubborn defensively. They can play 5 out defensively. They got Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Kristaps is supposed to be coming back if he's healthy. They got Al Horford. They got Derek White. So they could get in their own way of feeling like we don't have to blitz Luka Doncic. We don't have to blitz Kyrie Irving. We got enough defenders to defend these guys and throw bodies at them one-on-one. And I think if Luka takes advantage of that early, now Boston has to blitz their game plan defensively of, we'll just switch matchups. We'll switch on everything. We like what we have one-on-one when guarding Luka, whether it's Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Drew Holiday. And I think what's going to be important is not even about making shots, but if Luka could take advantage of those one-on-one matchups and get those guys in foul trouble early, because it's not an easy task to guard a 6'7", 240-pound guy that can get to his spots whenever he feels like it. And it might be, he's not going to blow by you. And he knows how to collect the foul. And that's what Luka can do. And so I think he's going to have to take advantage, not only be efficient, but get these guys in foul trouble early and take advantage of the one-on-one defense that they're going to throw at you game one. I don't think Boston's going to come out here and blitz. I think they got a little too much pride for that. I think they believe in what they've done all year up to this point. Too much to kind of concede of giving Luka that ultimate respect until he does it in the NBA Finals against them. I think that'll be an adjustment period. I think that'll be an adjustment you see maybe coming out of halftime from Boston defensively, or see, coming after game one and game two completely. But I think Boston could get in their own way defensively, and that would be to Luka's advantage in game one. Luka just has to capitalize on it. Kyrie Irving as well. I think they're going to do a lot of switches, and these guys are guys that could get their own bucket. These are also guys, Luka and Kyrie, with the ball in their hands. I don't necessarily I'm not worried about Jaylen Brown being in front of Kyrie Irving. I'm not worried about Jason Tatum being in front of Kyrie Irving. Not worried about Drew Holiday or Derek White. They are all very good defenders, and Boston is the number one defense in the NBA for a reason, because of how long they are, because of how they can play the pass lanes. But at the same time, this is the first time that Boston defensively is going to have to go against guys that could just flat out get their bucket and it plays winning basketball. You're playing against a team that's playing out of their mind right now. PJ Washington is shooting like no other. So you have to use your length and play that help side defense. You have to account for PJ Washington. You got to account for Derrick Jones Jr. because they will hit shots wide open. So I think for Luka, it's taking advantage of the fact Boston's going to throw one-on-one defense at you consistently in game one. And if you can win more possessions than you lose defensively or offensively, whether it's you score a bucket, you get to the free throw line and add a foul to one of those individual players, fouls, or you're able to get PJ Washington or Derrick Jones Jr. to knock down open shots, or you're able to, the pick and roll with Derek Lively, or you find Kyrie Irving. So there's a lot, like you said, it's a lot easy to say. It sounds easy. Drive and dish and hope PJ Washington can hit the shot. But there's a lot of length defensively. I just think it's up to Luka to come out game one, just be a killer, and he has to I'm taking advantage of every mismatch that we're going to have. There's not a single person that can guard me, and he showed he's had that killer mentality. Is to you Luka's killer mentality very similar to what we've seen in the past from like a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant? I think mentally he's more closer to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant the way he kills you than I guess you could say how he is team wise and how his game is like a LeBron or a James Harden.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get to that. On the matchup portion, when you're talking about the switching, I know that's what they do. The Boston games I have watched and the defense I have watched. But what I would caution Boston of being that stubbornness is Drew Holiday 6'4", and these are listed heights. So you know how NBA and we tend to add an inch or two. So you got
and it's with shoes on top of that.
Yeah. So Jalen, Derek White, and Drew Holiday. Well, Jalen's 6'6", and Derek White and Drew Holiday are listed at 6'4", and Luka is all of 6'7". So he has the size. Height-wise, he has the size, just pure weight advantage. So those switches, I think those matchups, other than maybe Jaylen Brown, I think really favor, and I think Luka can really take advantage of Derek White and Drew Holiday. Now, Drew Holiday's pesky, but he doesn't have the size of like a Dort from the Thunder series who got under Luka's skin. But I think he has, if you see one of those two guys on you, that's when it's all right, everyone get out the way, or set a pick and roll with the big fella and see how if they're going to switch with Al Horford or whatnot, what they're going to do with that. Because one of the biggest things that I've been saying on some of my videos is Dallas is the new Live City. Like, no disrespect to LA and those boys and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and all that. That was on another level. But Dallas is the new Live City. And so Luka taking advantage of those pick and roll situations, and they not having a ton of size coming over on the backside to take away Lively and Gaffer rolling to the basket, I think is an intriguing watch come June 6th. But into Luka's mentality, I think Luka, the bigger the game, the more assassin he is. I don't know if he's an assassin in November, when it's just like, this is game number 10.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big thing. I do think he has the cold-bloodedness in his veins of the greats that we have talked. How he came out in that last game against Minnesota, he ended that game before the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
Like, he said, no, T-Wolves and the Edwards, you are not that guy yet. I'm that guy, and I'm going to show you I'm that guy. And you can do whatever you want to try to do, but this series is over. And I believe he is cold-blooded when he has to. Now, can a cold-blooded also be the most whiniest player on the floor? Yeah, I guess they can, because that's what he is. But yeah, he's one player you don't want to talk mess to. Like, when I play basketball, you talk mess to me and you piss me off, like, I become a better player. Luka is the same way. Some guys, it doesn't operate like that. But the worst thing you can do to Luka right now is start jawing at him. So if you are in Boston, and we know Boston fans ain't quiet, but if you're in Boston and you're in those first 3 rows, you might want to be quiet. Don't talk smack to Luka and get him going, because he's going to say, all right, it's time to suit up. Here comes Superman. And, y'all going to let me take this series because y'all upset me. So Luka he's a dude that can absolutely snipe you from anywhere and end your series or that game just like that.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the biggest keys as far as for Luka is the fact that he's a killer on the road. And like, I know the numbers don't say that there's much of a difference between Luka at home and Luka on the road. The numbers don't separate what you see, though. Sometimes you just watch the game and it just looks different. He might, like, every 35-point performance doesn't look the same. Sometimes you're a killer in the first half. Sometimes you had a slow first half and you scored 25 in the second half. So every 35-point doesn't look the same. And so his numbers are very similar, but on the road, Luka becomes a different killer. He's a sicko. Any little thing is what's going to motivate him. Any little thing. So that first time you decide to boo Kyrie Irving, that's his brother. He's going to take it personal. Like, that's the type of sicko he is. He's not going to let it be like, well, I understand Kyrie Irving used to play for the Boston Celtics. They don't like him. No, because you don't like him, I'm going to take it personal. And because I take it personal, when I take things personal, I have the ability to give you a 40-point triple-double, take over this game, win, and take a 1-0 lead. I think that's how sick Luka is. But that's the possibility that can happen because I think Dallas is at an advantage entering this series being able to play the first two games in Boston. I think, you always want to have the home court advantage in the NBA Finals, but you don't always have a guy who plays like he plays on the road. Not every team, not even every championship team has a guy that takes everything personal, that plays absolutely amazing on the road, that engages with the away crowd in a manner that he doesn't even engage with the home crowd. He embraces the love and he loves it, but it's not a pissed off Luka when he plays in Dallas. But when he plays everywhere, and that's where I think he's at the advantage because you could simply take home court advantage in game one. You can get it right back to you, and now it's we won, and we got 3 more games at home. We can beat you, and we'll probably beat you in 6. So I think that's how important game one is, and I think Luka will be able to take advantage of that. We talked so much about Luka before we kind of close out and get predictions. I want to talk about some of the other matchups, though. Like, who is your biggest concern for Dallas? Like, going into this series, we can talk about all the positive things and what everybody needs to do right in order to win a championship. But then there's a certain matchup I'm a little concerned about. And if they take advantage of it, if they exploit this matchup, Dallas is going to have a hard time. So who is that matchup for the Mavericks, or who is that player that you're kind of looking like could be the weak link if we don't put them in a way to succeed? And so this person needs to do X, Y, and Z in order to be a factor and not be a detriment trying to win a championship.
So it's going to sound cliche because I think Jason Tatum is a matchup nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Washington or Derek Jones can easily match up with Jaylen Brown, and I think Kyrie can match up with Derek White or Drew Holiday and then Luka. But trying to Tatum, I mean, that's why we said he could be the face of the franchise if they win this championship. He's on that level, and being 6'8", 6'9", somewhere around there, athletic, he has everything in his bag. So, and then what I think you mentioned, Porzingis coming back. I mean, a 7'2" dude who we all know he used to be in a Mavs uniform, didn't work out. Now he's in Boston, but that Porzingis is a matchup nightmare, to be honest, especially if Lively and Gafford get in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get in foul trouble, and now you're having to put Maxey out there or Dwight Powell out there, ultimately that to me spells danger, Will Robinson, because we don't have an answer for that. And but Jason Tatum in that starting lineup against our starting lineup, I would imagine they probably put Derek Jones Jr. on him to start off the game. There is a little size discrepancy, but Jason Tatum's not a low post guy. So, like, when we talk about advantage of size and stuff, there's not very many guys who can back guys down anymore. It's really just being able to stay in front. So, but Tatum and his length and his athleticism, and he can hit every shot and handle the ball. He's a heck of a player, man. And I respect his game. And so, but it sounds cliche. Like, I wish I could pull some, I was worried about Derek White. But no, I mean, I think it is going to come down a little to all these other guys hitting shots when it comes to Washington, Jones, Derek White, Drew Holiday. When I look at these two teams, I see, to me, 2 out of the top 3 best players in the series wear a Mavericks uniform.
Right.
Like, people will argue Jaylen Brown's better than Kyrie. That's a different debate for a different day.
Mm-hmm.
But I view Luka, Tatum essentially on the same playing field, and then Kyrie, then Jaylen Brown. And I think the Mavericks have had 2 out of the best 3 players in every series they've played. And that gives you a chance to win the series every single time.
Yeah, and so everything you said, I agree. And then just to go into a little bit further of what you said with Gafford and Lively, I think my biggest concern for the Dallas Mavericks is you are about to take a team defense. This has been an elite team defense in these playoffs.
Yeah.
You're about to see how well are y'all as individual defenders now. Because I talked to TGK about this yesterday. And I said, what's been great about the Dallas Mavericks in these playoffs is not a single person on that roster outside of maybe Lively rings bells as a defender when you hear their name individually. But as a collective, Dallas has been able to play elite team defense. They've been one of the best defenses in this playoffs because of how well they play from a team perspective. You've seen Luka figure out, like, they have this defense and they have it set up. We don't let you enter the paint. You're going to have to beat us with mid-range shots. We're ready to close out on three-pointers, so you don't get a lot of open shots there. But now the Celtics can play this 5-out offense, which now makes every matchup almost one-on-one. There's very minimal help in a 5-out offense. You know this coaching. You've had to coach a defense coaching against the 5-out offense. And when they are talented and a lot of them can get their own bucket, and it might only be one guy on the floor that can't guard whoever's in front of him on that instance. But that mismatch might be no matter who you put in that position, they can't guard them one-on-one. And with the lack of help, I think that's where the Mavericks should be a little bit nervous. And so this is going to test everybody's will to want to get it defensively. You are going to have to perform well individually on defense in order to win your matchups, because there's not going to be a lot of help like we're accustomed to. There are not going to be three guys in the paint when Jason Tatum pump fakes and drives to be able to help. If he pump fakes and beats his guy, he might have a wide open bucket, or he might be meeting a Derek Lively or Gafford at the rim, and Tatum can finish over those guys. So I think from a team, you're worried about, if I'm Dallas, I'm worried about what this defense looks like as individuals, because as a team defense, we've been one of the best defenses in the playoffs, but I think everybody's about to get tested individually, defensively, and that's got to be a little scary because, like you said, like, we're going to start the series, like, who's Luka guarding? Like, probably Drew Holiday, and then you put Kyrie on Jaylen Brown, and then you got Derrick Jones Jr. on Tatum. Like, there's a lot of matchups you don't like. Does Derek Lively or Gafford have enough lateral movement to play and guard Kristaps from the outside in? It's a lot different guarding a 7-footer when he can stretch you out to the three-point line, because a lot of these big men that, you know, the Gaffords and the Livelies, most of them lateral movement is not the quickest. And so Kristaps can take advantage of that offensively. And so I think like you said, Lively and Gafford are going to be tested. If they end up in foul trouble, I think Dallas having to play small ball from there on out is at Dallas's disadvantage. I think Boston's beating any team that wants to play small ball. If y'all want to play small, they're beating anybody trying to play small ball. So I think it's going to be you're going to have to dig a lot deeper than you've ever had to dig in your life to play defense. This is just on the defensive side of the floor, but that's the one mismatch or matchup that I'm looking for the Mavericks that I'm like, this is where they could get exposed a little bit, is that 5-out defense. There's a lack of help. And there's a couple defenders that we're not sure how good they are individually on defense. Luka being one of those guys, he's going to get on a switch and have to really buckle down, put his butt down, slap the ground, and play defense, because there's going to be a point in time it's him versus Jaylen Brown one-on-one, or him versus Jason Tatum one-on-one. And when he goes to do that fake reach, when you know Derek Lively is down there in the paint, you go to reach to show effort, but they blow by you. We've all done it. We've all seen it. This time, there might not be that help. Derek Lively and Gafford aren't always going to be there to bail you out on the defensive side. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to Dallas and what it looks like on the individual matchups defensively, because they played well so well defensively up to this point. But this is really where you get tested. So that's the one thing I'm looking for with Dallas. Other than that, I think I like the spot Dallas is in everywhere else. I just think Boston's strength on offense is Dallas's weakness on defense, and that's having to get 5 guys to play individual defense at an elite level.
Yeah, so you mentioned you were like, how would you match up? So the coach in me, I would put Luka on Derek White.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I would go with that. I would put Kyrie on Drew Holiday.
Okay.
I would go Jones on Tatum, Washington on Brown, and then Gafford on the big. So that would be how I would match them up to start the game. Obviously, they're going to be screening, and depending on the philosophy of what the Mavs is, I think they generally switch most pick and rolls, unless it's a small to big or big to small pick and roll. So that's kind of how I would see it going if I was Jason Kidd. And but I think you're right. Once you spread out and you take that big out of that help position, it's either foul city or you're giving up layups and dunks. And you can't do that, especially if, you know, I think some of that will be predicated on how easy are you getting buckets on your end.
Hmm.
You know, there was times in that Minnesota series that Dallas, like I would send a tweet out and be like, "Hey, Dallas is every bucket Dallas is getting is difficult right now.
Hmm.
Like well, they're staying in the game, but right now it's difficult. And then later it'd free up, or vice versa. You know, there was a heavy part of that time that Minnesota every bucket they were getting was extremely difficult because of the Dallas defense. So if Dallas is able to get quality looks without having to go maximum effort for 23 seconds every possession, then I think that translates to a positive on the defensive end as well. And you're going to take advantage of opportunities you get. This isn't going to be a Boston team who gives you a lot of free passes and
Hmm.
gives the ball back to you like Minnesota did. This isn't a young team. You know, Minnesota, their best player is 22 years old. The Thunder were the youngest team in the league in the playoffs. So you're playing an experienced opponent who is hungry to win, who has something to prove, and you know they hear it all, they see it all. They play in one of the biggest basketball media pressure. You know, they got the history of the Celtics weighing on their shoulders. You know, can are their names ever going to be in the rafters if they don't win a championship? Like they have a lot to play for, as anyone in this position does. But it is going to be an exciting, intriguing matchup. I will give you my prediction now if you'd like it.
Yeah, go ahead. That's exactly where I was about to go. I was like, you know what? You said all that to say it's time.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm taking Mavs in 6, staying pretty consistent in that. If I ever change, I'm only taking Mavs in 5. It'll never go. The series ain't going 7. Dallas is winning it at home, in my opinion, and bringing it. But coach, who you taking in what and why?
So I'm going to preface this with me and my dad on Time Sports Talk. We did a bracket before the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I had Boston in 7 over Denver.
Okay.
That was my original bracket. So that's obviously not happening. Well, now we've watched games. Now we've seen how it's played out. I obviously still have Boston in there. Now Dallas is in there. Mo, I'm not trying to copy you, but I have the Mavs in 6 as well.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a common theme. I think Mavs in 6 is safe for like I don't see them sweeping Boston. I don't see them winning in 5. That 6 is safe. And then understanding you don't want to go to game 7 and have to win a championship in Boston.
yeah,
Game 6, if you're up 3-2, handle business right here. Keep the Larry O'Brien in Dallas. That's where I'm coming from. They'll be up 3-2 and they know we got to keep the Larry O'Brien. We can't jump on the jet and have to play another game on the road to try and win this championship. If they want to win it, they got to close it out at home in 6.
I mean, there's nothing more exciting than a game 7, but I don't want to see one.
Yeah, not when you, especially when you're the road team. Like you don't
Exactly.
want to go on the road for game 7. The aesthetics of like, oh my God, Luka, Tatum. And if this series is in a 7-game series, like I would imagine it's not 3 wins. Dallas blew Boston out every time. And when Boston won their 3 games, they blew like this would be a close, tight-knit series. So yes, I would love a game 7. And you get to sell me on a Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. Luka, Tatum, Brown, Kyrie for sure. Right. But when I'm looking at what it takes for Dallas to win a championship, if you are up 3-2 and game 7 will be on the road, then you need to handle business and do not let that trophy leave your city and hop on another plane to go to somebody else's city, and you have to go to their city and take it back and bring it back. So if that Larry O'Brien trophy is sitting in there prepared for Dallas while up 3-2 in Dallas on that day to win it, and do everything that you do with winning a championship, keep everything in Dallas. I'm telling you, I think they could win a game 7. I just keep it in Dallas. You don't want to have to go on the road and play in game 7, especially in Boston. Boston
Right. So the scenarios that I think there's a scenario where game 7 is not in your favor, and I think a scenario where it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you are up 3-2 going into game 6 and you lose and then go to Boston, I think you're at a disadvantage. If you're down 3-2 going into game 6, and you win and you got to go to Boston to win, I think that would be the most comfortable I'm with a game 7 going in off of a win versus off of a loss. So, but I suspect it, and like I said at the beginning, I think the longer this series goes, the more it favors Dallas. Because if it's a dogfight, Dallas has been in dogfights for 3 rounds. Boston, man, you look at that Eastern Conference. Giannis got hurt. Lillard got hurt. Brunson got hurt. Halliburton got hurt. I mean,
Butler, Donovan Mitchell, like everybody's best player was gone. Yeah.
The whole damn, if you made the All-Star team out of the East, 10 out of those 15 guys are hurt. Now, they didn't play all those teams, but they played teams that got past those teams, and some of those teams they did have their best players hurt. And so they haven't been tested like the Mavs are about to test them. And I want to see, like Mike Tyson said, you always have a plan until you get punched in the mouth. What's going to happen when Boston gets punched in the mouth? How are they going to respond?
Yeah, and that's always the thing that matters is if you get punched in the mouth, how do you respond? It'll be the same thing for Dallas. Coach, I appreciate you for joining the show, though. And this won't be the last time that you hear from him during the NBA Finals. Now, once the finals kick off, I have guests leading up to the finals, but don't forget, the finals has to be played. And so I'm going to double back and get back with all these guests after game 1 and game 2 and game 3. So you are going to hear from everybody that's joined the show throughout the week again later on in the next week or two. So I do appreciate you for coming on. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to Believe in Mavs anywhere you get your podcast. That's BLEAV in Mavs. Like, comment, subscribe. Leave some mailbag questions. If you're a fan and you want anything to be answered, hit me in my DM at Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter. I'll answer all questions as well. Want to engage with the fans as well. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for listening. Be well. Be safe, and we will see you throughout the week to cover all week. We're covering the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals.